Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming today. For our ASL lecture series, first this quarter, I'm really very pleased to have two women here from Toronto, Canada. Their names are up here. Anita Small. And this is Joanne Cripps. Joanne, she will be using the interpreter to voice. Oh, no. Anita will be using the interpreter voice, sign for her, and then the interpreter will be on stage back and forth, signing and voicing. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting us here today. Just want to let you know that I may be using some signs that you may not be familiar with, so they're Canadian signs, so if you are not familiar, please interrupt us. I'd like to give you a little brief introduction. We met in a deaf school in Manitoba, in Milton. And at that time, Bill Forth, we were hired to instruct sign language school to provide the network for parents and children to go through the educational process, and that environment closed because they wanted a more strong emphasis on speech reading, and then Anita was brought in. Anita, excuse me, the interpreter error. We went through the process, and we felt that that the training should have been mine. So we met more frequently, and things happened. As sometimes things just happen for a reason. But really, that's just a little bit of the history between the two of us. It's really precious to both of us. So. The Canadian Cultural Centre for the Deaf, CCSD, they have been expanding and have needed resources. So we were put in place to work together. And we came up with several projects. And CCSD contacted both of us to do some research to establish deaf cultural.
Yes or no?
Yes. Oh, thank you. When we should establish a deaf cultural center, yes or no? It's not a sign. It's this. Does anybody have any idea that's yes or no? So this is what we use for yes or no. Yeah, so sometimes, it's easy. That's from future reference, you can use it as my nickname. I don't know if you've noticed, but the CYW after my name is a child indicative of my role as a child and youth worker. I've got a clip to show you. Really, basically, what we have now is the clip of what it is, and then basically I will describe the Deaf Cultural Center. You have Good Morning America. We also have a similar television program in Canada. Once the center opened, we were interviewed, and it was broadcast on television. Mm-hmm.
Deaf culture before, but the celebration of language, identity, and social interaction is alive and well in Canada. And with the new Deaf Culture Centre in Toronto, it offers a place for all to mingle and learn. You're likely familiar with sign language used by people who are deaf. But for the deaf community, sign language is more than just a language, it's a way of life. Sign language is also at the heart of
Alrighty. Since the opening of the center, we have had people from all over the world come and visit it. We've had over 40,000 visitors, and we have been open only since May 2006. Really, the Deaf Cultural Center has a very broad reach. We have contacts from national and international sites. We've had individuals from Japan. Their program has come over here and really done a lot of research for our Deaf Cultural Center for various reasons. Also, we really depend heavily on volunteers for the Deaf Cultural Center. And also we are independently funded, and we depend on volunteers to provide a lot of the work for us. Also, volunteers also get a benefit in return. They are also work in the role of internships, that type of environment from Gallaudet University, also from students who are studying museum studies from University of Toronto. They come here, and for part of their coursework requirement, they are volunteers. Also, interpreting students come and work here as part of their course requirement. Really, we established, the goal was to provide an opportunity also for deaf artists to showcase their work. We didn't know who to showcase at first. We asked for volunteers or ideas and names, and at first it started out small, but the list of suggestions really grew. I'm curious, do you know the concept of DVIA, view, image, and art for the deaf, or deaf, view, image, art? That is the abbreviation, DVIA. What is the woman's name who founded that? Who? Betty Miller. At that time, when the committee was really brainstorming a lot of their work, she offered that as part of her contribution. Also, we have a gift shop. And the rule is the things that are made and sold must be made by deaf artists. The products that are sold there range from quilts to jewelry, books, but they must only be works from deaf artists. And obviously, at any time, people are more than able to submit some of their work. Really, this is interesting. The I love you. We've tried to, broaden the visual imagery. Everybody has seen the I love you. It's great, it's fine, but we want more of a broad spectrum of artwork. Herbert Green, thank you, is a Canadian artist. And I don't know, maybe you may recognize some of his work or not. He's in his 80s right now. But 3 years ago, I saw some of his work, and he was also part of the group of 7 artists. Those are Canadian artists. The group of 7 is a very famous group of artists in Canada. And this has become more of the deaf group of 7. And we're trying to get some of his work. He's, what? Do you want to sell some of my work? So it's really quite prominent and wonderful. All right, I'd like to turn it over. Are you going to sit? No. We're just figuring out how we're going to place ourselves.
Okay. Just before I begin, I just wanted to mention one thing as an intro to myself and the Deaf Culture Center. As Joanne mentioned, I started out as a speech and language clinician, and you saw the EDD, MSc, EDD. The MSc was my speech and language training. The EDD is doctorate in education, and my area was sociolinguistics. And I think my learning after my doctorate is probably the most significant, which was my learning from the deaf community, from deaf adults, both deaf children and from deaf adults. And I went through huge change through that learning. And Joanne and I have now worked together for, I guess, 12 years, very closely through CCSD. And so obviously I've gone through a lot of change myself, and the Deaf Culture Center we really see as an agent of change. It's an opportunity to promote the deaf community, for the deaf community, artists, and the deaf community as a whole to grow. It's also an opportunity for hearing individuals who don't know about the community to really learn about the community and to go through a lot of change themselves. So I think the idea of agent of change is really important. So now I want to talk about the permanent exhibits. So we have permanent exhibits. There are 3 areas: art, language, and place. Art, we feature art all by deaf artists and focus on Devia art, deaf view image art. So art created by deaf artists that tend to have strong contrasting colors and texture that incorporates deaf experience. Often there's emphasis on the eyes, face, hands. Language, we have interactive exhibits. So you see this one in the middle is a cube that students and adults can also play with, where they can learn that the language is not only based on what's on the hands, but also the grammar on the face. And then this interactive exhibit that you see close to me, which gives an opportunity for people to play with the parameters of signs. And then place is where place represents the places where deaf individuals and the deaf community feel a sense of belonging and where the language can grow. So deaf schools, deaf clubs, deaf organizations. And that's what it focuses on. And that's where it gives the history of sign language development and of the schools. We also have special exhibits that we change every 6 months to a year, and we've mentioned just a few. So the first one was an international deaf art exhibit. Then we featured deaf native artists, deaf women artists, then deaf sports. We then featured the artwork of Igor Kolombatovic, who actually lives in San Francisco. He was 89 years old when we had that exhibit. And it was called Beauty and Beast, and it really featured the transition from oppression to freedom. We then had a deaf filmmakers exhibit for 1 year. And we've also had a photography exhibit that was part of a larger Toronto exhibit called Contact Toronto. And now we're featuring an innovation exhibit. So I think RIT and the Deaf Culture Center are on the same wavelength. Part of the reason why we're here is because of your innovation forum tomorrow. So it's nice to see that we're in sync. We also have special events. The first one mentioned there is Nuit Blanche. That's a French word for white night. It refers to an all-night event. It starts at 7 in the evening, ends at 7 in the morning, where the entire city of Toronto, we have about 600,000 people that come out all over the city to different museums, art galleries, studios, to experience the arts. And we've been accepted as partners since the first year that it happened, which was 4 years ago, and also it was our first year opening. And we've just been accepted again this year to be a partner in that exhibit. Luminato, which is also a deaf festival throughout the city, which we're part of. Deaf Community Summer Arts Festivals, which we've had not every summer, but several summers. Taste of D, We invited several, I think about 10 deaf chefs to do international cooking. And we did that for our anniversary 1 year. We also created a virtual museum, which we'll be talking about tomorrow. And when we launched it, we had a big event for that as well. Movie marathon, which was a full weekend of movies all day, all night. You know, we had the Olympics in Canada, and the Olympic torch was actually passed right in front of the Deaf Culture Center. Then the animated dictionary launch. And then every time we have a special exhibit, we have a special event connected with it. We have school and group tours. So this lists many different groups that have come. I just want to mention one, which is the Maasai School for the Deaf from Tokyo, Japan. I don't know if they've come here to visit you, but they were in Canada and the US doing research when they opened. It's the first bilingual school for the deaf in Tokyo. And they want their students to experience not only culture within their school, but in a broader sense in their environment. So they've come and met with us many times. We also hold classes and workshops, ASL classes, LSQ classes, which Joanne and I have both been part of. Culinary arts classes, where we have different deaf chefs providing classes in ASL to the community. DeViart workshops, photography workshops. Last summer we had an intensive 1-week film workshop on DeVia filmmaking. And they created three films in that week. There's more work that needs to be done in that, but it was a good start. We've had mime and sign dance workshops, as well as storytelling workshops. Those workshops, those last few ones, were not only for the deaf community, but during our summer deaf festivals, where we have deaf and hearing individuals taking part in workshops. Just one thing about I think it's there, 1 second. The school tours, I just want to mention, we are in the Distillery District, which is a great cultural arts center. In the summertime, it's very, very busy. In the winter, it's very cold and not very busy. But that's when we have more school tours, so it actually works out very well for us. So just wanted to mention that.
All right, moving on. We have had many famous people come and visit our cultural center. The mayor of Toronto. That was a 24-hour event. This is the sign for the Nuit Blanche that was discussed previously. So he came for the third occurrence of that, and that event happens on October 3rd, but it's not just deaf community, but surrounding communities too. Folks tend to stay at the Deaf Cultural Center. But the interpreter is a little bit confused. I apologize for that. Oh, thank you. The mayor is supposed to come and stay only 10 minutes at this event, but it turns out he decided to stay for a full hour and really enjoyed himself. Also, the president of Gallaudet, Robert Davila, is attending too, or has attended. Quite often, our work is published in various forms of media, and this is just an example of some of those media highlights. Really, the Deaf Culture Center, the website is www.deafculturecenter.ca, And this is you can go online and see a virtual museum and also see examples of various forms of sign language. You have ASL, LSQ. If you haven't looked at the website, I strongly encourage you to check it out. It's really great. There's various information there about the community and the Deaf Culture Center also. You see? This is, right now, this is one of the exhibits. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. Okay. We just began this exhibit. This is who? Dr. Sam Cipolla. Sam Cipolla was involved in this project. You know, and when visitors come and they experience the center, these are just some of the comments that they make about their experience. So after I've talked about the Deaf Cultural Center itself, really I'm going to go into really some of the background of how it happened. What happened first is that CCSD asked the two of us to really research the possibility and the feasibility of the center. We met with Wayne Hussey, and he is a fundraising consultant. And we explained to him our vision of what we had in mind. And he told me, if you bring me 10 donor names when you come back, that's what I expect. So we really had to come up with 10 ideas for names to contact and to seek funding from them, and we did. And that really helped the process along with the whole fundraising experience. We also had to work with an architectural consultant. Fortunately, they did it free for no charge. But as a result, for the consultation was free, but we had to guarantee that we were going to work with them for the actual design. Okay. Alrighty then. What was really important is for the architectural study, the Shelton architecture, we really emphasized what we wanted it to look like. We wanted it to be very inclusive of the community. You know, the decisions weren't made without community feedback and input. There is a French word called charrette, and it means, it's for their architectural services. That means folks would get together and brainstorm and come up with ideas and break down into small groups and draft quick ideas, but to also use real materials to really provide a visual idea of what the center would look like. So we had folks from the Newfoundland, and we selected them because along each part of the way, we were involved with 2 national organizations. The Canadian Agency of the Deaf, CAD, and then CCSD, the Canadian Cultural Services for the Deaf. No.
The Canadian Association of the Deaf and the Canadian Cultural Society of the Deaf.
Thank you. For those 2 organizations, for each of those organizations, we really had to connect with 10 provinces. Provinces are equivalent to states here in the United States. And CCSD had 10 of their own that they were affiliated with. So each of the 2 leaders had to go out to various conferences and meet with a total of 24 leaders. So really that was the key, so that word could get out to the community. I know that some Canadian signs, this is province. You know, we have the states here in America, and this is how it's designed. Province. Province. Okay, thank you. All right, yes. Province, yes. Some people sign it kind of like a cross like this on your shoulder. And Newfoundland, this is the sign for Newfoundland. Alrighty. So all of these individuals got together and for this charrette experience, and really had to come up with a vision of what we wanted to see. And as we broke down in smaller groups, they talked about things, and one of the ground rules is that you could not criticize any ideas. You can bring books, magazines, anything that you could incorporate with the cultural center. And we gathered up all of this information and all this work and brought it back. And that was our homework. We had to go through and analyze everything to try to determine the similarities and some of the differences and go through the breakdown of how this could really happen. But the important part is, in setting up the center, is to really have that brainstorming experience that was like crucial, to really also have a buy-in from the community, to involve everyone who this would impact. Okay, this is the vision document, okay. So we met with Bruce Mao Design Incorporated. He is definitely a world-renowned artist. And we're going to show you that document. For all of the information that we gathered at the charrette, and then we gave that to Bruce Mao, and he gave us a portfolio that we could take around to provide a visual aid for the presentations when we were seeking or going through the fundraising experience. This visual is really what we came up with from the charrette experience. All of these different sections of what we would like to have happen at the center. Okay, hold on. For this last slide, I'd really like to talk about Forrest Nickerson. He's really, the Canadians refer to him as the father of deaf culture and deaf identity. Before it was really identified here in America. For the CAD, we have the NAD, that's the equivalent. And this is a Forrest's name sign. And he really felt strongly, deaf have very unique skills, and I want to emphasize those. And the CAD thought, kind of pushed it aside, for various political reasons. So the CCSD really undertook that. And his work wasn't hidden. It was out in the open. It was very public work. So that book is really the key. The presentation, the visuals, that to go out to the community and to really spread the word, that documentation was vital to the whole development process. And once we had that, we needed to come up with a name for the place. So we came up with the Deaf Cultural Center, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. She has to put her glasses on now.
We've seen
Sorry.
each other grow and change.
We've seen each other grow and change. So when we're thinking of the Cultural Center, this is what, it's a very long name. From the brainstorming experience, some of the key ideas that were brought up are listed here. I really think it's important to emphasize the lowercase n capitalization because this is deaf, developed. When it's small d, I want to emphasize that it's hard of hearing individuals that came up with that idea. And the capitalization are big D deaf cultural ideas. The star members of the panel. I'm curious, for tomorrow morning, how many of you, talking about the big D. Thank you. Thank you. How many of you will, for example, regarding the Star Spangled Banner, how many of you would say that in the morning? So we're going to call you the small US of A now. I mean, yes, you're an individual, but if you're big D, you don't want to lose that. We don't want to. We don't want hard of hearing to come up in my vocabulary, so that's why we're selecting the large D. Yes, everyone is people, and they have to really analyze that everyone is diverse. Some folks can speak on the phone, and it's the same as the hearing community, the deaf community, the beautiful forms of expression that happen. And we feel that everyone should be a big D in this regarding the cultural impact of the vocabulary. They have the disseminate information, also to talk about past, history, present, and the future. So, and also the change from small d deaf to big D deaf. Okay. I really like this. So all of that, how do we roll that up into one name? Remember I showed you this? Decided to pare it down some. But to emphasize that, that Canadian is the primary culture, and we didn't want to emphasize that it's international cultural experience. So we also removed heritage and arts. And it's still, we feel that it's kind of a weak name. The center means that people would come and socialize. So we decided to remove the E and then invert the placement of the word. So Deaf Culture Center, it still feels like something is a little missing. And we talked about that because it's deaf culture. Who? Font.
The font.
Thank you. The font of this is important. If it's all capitalization, we feel that it fits and is more appropriate to the goal and the overall feel of the center. You want to go on? Or let everyone read this? Well, I think because time is running short. Okay, go on to the next one. We want to keep things progressing. This is the process. We have the sensors that are attached to hands, and when the individual is signing, that information is gathered. Also, for the logo, I forgot, we didn't want a flat image of just hands like this. We wanted to emphasize motion of the language, and we couldn't determine how to do that. So of two hands gathering. So this is why we have used this technology of capturing motion, of having sensors on the person's hands, and then filming that. So we have over 100 words, and each one is an individual sign. So for that, we have 500 breakdowns, and we have selected 12 from that. And the logo is an intermingling of those individual signs along with the color that is added. It desires to inspire. This is inspire, fresh, new ideas, and on the end, collaboration. So if you see a business card or letterhead or newsletter or brochures or flyers, so that is the logo that we're going to use. It could be purple, green, and we change up the colors sometimes. All right.
Okay, so the logo that Joanne just showed you is actually all over the Deaf Culture Center. So the door handles, that's based on the sign Inspire, the movement of the sign Inspire. And they were created in bronze by a woman named Dora de Pederi Hunt, who became deaf later in her life. She was 93 when she created the door handles for us. And she's the same woman who created the Queen on our Canadian loonie and toonie. So she was deaf. She passed away just last year. You'll also see marble when you first come in to the Deaf Center, white marble, and that's reminiscent of the white marble on the floors of the schools for the deaf in the provincial schools for the deaf. Glass on the stairways and shelves just for putting down your drink or papers or whatever you need so that your hands are free for signing. Okay, so what you saw with that was both the renovated space as well as at the end you saw what we began with, which was basically a cellar. It was actually a whiskey factory that we converted into the beautiful space that we see. And we got a Canadian award for one of the top 10, it was top 10 Canadian Interior Design Award for the change in that space. That was in 2007 that we got that award. Marketing is also a very important part of the thriving of the center. And so when we worked with Bruce Mail Design and created the logos, we also created our vision leaflet, program brochures, the newsletters. We used the logos that we had created with them, postcards, posters, all the things you see listed here. And we've actually brought a sample of all of these things that we'll give to the committee this afternoon. In our multimedia studio, we've created many projects. The most recent two, we've received awards for several projects, deafplanet.com. If you haven't gone on that website, do go on it. It was a TV series that we created as well as a website. We received a World Summit Award for that and NHK Japan Prize for that, as well as many Gemini Award nominations. Our most two recent productions in our multimedia studio are the asalphabet.com website and our deafculturecenter.com virtual museum. Oh, also we can rent out that studio space. This was part of our visioning, that we would have programs that included guided tours, workshops, classes, video conferences, and summer and winter institutes or workshops. And those things are all realities now. We do offer memberships. Any donor who donates $100 or more automatically becomes a member. And those members can also access our archives. We also have the archives online, and we will be putting more archives online. There's the signature gift shop. All the things that Joanne mentioned in the vision document are now a reality. Okay, our future. So future special exhibits, we will be having a DeVia traveling exhibit. We're looking for funding through grants to create that. And we're also hoping to have a DeVia coffee table book to go with that exhibit. Special exhibit on Martha's Vineyard, which will be part of a Deaf Clans exhibit. What's in a name sign? So we hired interns from Gallaudet. One of the summer projects for one of those interns was to research name signs all over the world. And that will be one of our future exhibits. iMusic, including deaf rap, as well as something that we're showing now, which is the Vibe Chair, where individuals deaf and hearing can enjoy the vibration of music along their backs, on their arms. And there are many other very fun visual and vibrotactile music experiments that are happening that are a lot of fun. Okay, liberation stories. And deaf magicians. This is just a fun exhibit. There's actually a book on deaf magicians, and it's become something that's very popular. So we will have that interspersed with more serious exhibits. Special projects. So we are hoping to expand our Canadian deaf artist contacts. So we'll have a Canadian deaf artist network so that individuals can access Canadian deaf artists and so that the deaf artists can also collaborate with each other. We'll be expanding the ASL Animated Dictionary for Children, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're publishing a Deaf Heritage Children's book a year from now. the Davia Coffee Table book I mentioned, an LSQ dictionary, which is very important. We have an ASL dictionary, but not an LSQ one. And we'll be hosting the Deaf History International Conference in 2012 at the Deaf Culture Center and in Toronto. Then finally, we cannot forget sustainability. That's very important. Yep. It's not the most fun of the topics to talk about, but it's a very important one, is the finances. So we get our financing through three major areas: telemarketing, grants, and private donations. We also have fundraising events, also through gift shops, rentals, and tours. We're establishing a $10 million endowment. We've just recently started to get donations through securities transfers. So if somebody has some investments, and they might not have ready cash, but they might have investments that they want to transfer over to us, that's a very good way to get a donation. And then matching funds from individuals. And then finally, our on-site business to fund operations. We're now working on a business that we hope to open in the next couple years. This is important. When we were doing research on the Deaf Culture Center before we opened, we went to many different cultural centers, like the Italian, it's called the Colombo Center, the Jewish Community Center in Toronto. All of those have a business that actually fund their nonprofit work. They actually have a gym that's open to anybody, and the money from that goes into the programming. We wanted to find a business that would somehow reflect our vision, that wouldn't be separate from our vision. And so stay tuned, and we'll share that with you soon. Okay, we've got a few minutes for questions. We did have a student curator who actually came and worked with us for 1 year, and then we got a grant to extend her time with us for another year and a half. And then when that grant ended, we actually kept her on for a little bit longer. We weren't able to keep her longer than that during the recession. We simply couldn't do that. But I oversaw the work of the curator. My responsibility is the education of the center, and we do, whenever we have a new exhibit, we don't plan the exhibits alone. Each exhibit that we have, we get specialists in that area, members of the deaf community who are specialists in that area, who brainstorm what the focus of the exhibit should be, what kinds of artifacts we should have, so it becomes a representation of the entire deaf community. We also have interns who come and work with us. So for example, we had Drew Robarge, who is a student in DC. He's a museum studies student who came and did an internship with us, not last summer, but the summer before. We've had a deaf archivist who came and worked with us, a student archivist who did an internship with us 2 summers in a row.
I'd like to add to that. Really, we do need many more deaf curators and archivists. Really, we feel that the history is suppressed, and we want to gather up as much as possible to, potentially see. The vision is, of course, to have this one, but we would love to have a broader network to establish more centers along the same lines, and also. We selected that area, the distillery area, because I want to own part of that. We want to really have a huge impact on the center. So who is our audience? We had to think about that. And we felt that if the center became a meeting place, we didn't want people to have to travel to the outskirts. We wanted to go to a more central location, to have the restaurants or any other social environments close by. So we felt that that was a perfect location for why we chose the distillery area. One more question? About the liberation stories. I'm curious about the liberation stories topic. Could you expand on that a little bit more, please? Well, one example is Canadian women, Elizabeth Coombe. She's from Europe, and at that time, there were no jobs, and she was a woman that moved to Canada. And she also didn't come solo. She brought about 40 other people with her. And they were able to she was able to convince more folks to join her and end up moving to Halifax. And establish a colony, a deaf colony there in Halifax. So she was really resisting government services, and that was one example. An MP, this deaf MPP, Gary Milkowski, thank you. He wrote History Through Deaf Eyes. But there was no place to show his work being about deaf people and what they were able to achieve and succeed.
Yeah, that the History Through Deaf Eyes was more about what happened to deaf people, whereas the stories that we will be telling in the Deaf Culture Center are what has grown through the deaf community, not what's happened to the deaf community.
Thank you. Come on after, and they'll be here for a few more minutes. We're kind of running short on time. So first, I'd like to thank both of you so much for being here today, and also for the interpreter, Cheryl Minder, doing both roles. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And the second ASL lecture series is April 29th. And Peter Hauser is going to be presenting.